Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're back for another rousing adventure in the world of CRM convos. We'll be talking today about the sales funnel, which some would call an ancient relic from the days when marketing and sales were as cooperative as cats and dogs.
What do you
Many
mean?
would also, yep.
So what do you mean were?
Yeah, so yesterday, basically. Some say the funnel's dead, but we still obsess over it like it's the finale of our favorite show. So, what's the scoop? We'll talk about its origins, bemoan its inadequacies, and maybe dream up a world where marketing and sales get along and hold hands under a rainbow. But, as always, there's a plot twist. We've got new models, kind of the same but with fancier hats, data analytics playing the hero, and a dash of customer-centric enlightenment. Yet, here we are, stuck in a loop, pondering if we should just let customers chart their own adventures. Because in the end, aren't we all just seeking a sequel to the funnel saga? And there is no one better to talk about the funnel, which is dead, long live the funnel, than a friend of the show, Jody Spencer. Go-to-market ambassador, fractional CMO, and just all-around smart person. Jody, welcome once again.
Hello, thank you.
Time to blush.
Thank you. That was a great intro. I feel so loved. And let me tell you, having this conversation when you're fractional, is it eye-opening?
Oh, no doubt. I want to hear a little bit more about that as we go on. So, is there anything I missed in your introduction? Stuff that you'd like the rest of the world to know that I forgot to say?
No, you did a great job. You made me sound so much better than I actually am. Thank you.
Lies. You're amazing.
Oh,
I would keep having you back. So, as we were discussing before we went live, there is an actual origin to the sales funnel. Would you like to talk to us about that?
Well, I had to do a little digging actually when I was asked this question because I wasn't actually sure how far back it went, but it goes back about 126 years to when the sales funnel was first conceived in terms of this idea of helping to bring a customer from point of, for today's term, awareness, all the way through to purchase. 126 years. How much has that changed in 126 years?
It's a long time to be using a model.
Not at all, right? Just the colors probably that are used in the graphics representing it.
Well, I don't know. We've been talking about, I can't even pinpoint when the first time I heard the funnel is dead, right? I talk about it a lot and on some of the shows that I go on, they'll kindly say, and Jody, you talk about the funnel set. I wasn't the one who first came up with it. We've been talking about this for decades. I think we're finally at the point, though, where it's starting to change. It has to change because our buyers have changed. So I do believe that we are going to start to see the true death of that traditional funnel.
Well, in the minutes preceding our going live, we talked a little about exactly that. But why already now? So if I'm looking at the customer being empowered, this is talk that we talk about since the advent of social media, which is 2 decades. When was Twitter, Facebook was 5, 6, 7, so that range?
So for me, I feel like the funnel has been having this slow, aching, painful demise for quite a while, right? Because of the advent of different technologies, the way that marketers are able to glean information and respond in a certain way, right? To try and get this engagement. So it's been dying. I think what really pushed this forward so that companies who at first went, it's not dying. Like we still have a funnel. We still have, tofu, mofu, bofu. Hate those terms too. SQL, MQL. Hate those words too. Again, funnel, SQL, MQL, tofu, mofu, bofu, out.
What's with SQL?
Pardon me?
SQL, SQL, what's wrong with it?
Oh, so much wrong with that, but we'll get into that later. But you asked the question, right? What's the difference? Why do I feel that this is really changing?
Yeah.
COVID to me was an accelerant. The reason being, during COVID, when COVID hit, and companies were thrown into this whirlwind of how we had to interact and engage with customers and respond, bring customer service to. I'm not saying customer service is great these days across the board, but I am saying that customer service had to step up in a lot of places during COVID because the way in which we responded to customers and interacted with them and helped them through problems changed dramatically. To me, COVID is what is the accelerant for why the funnel, more and more people are jumping on board with the idea that, right, we don't funnel people through a process. Who wants to be funneled? Do you?
No, never.
No, when we talk about putting people through the funnel, I picture a sausage grinder.
Yeah. It's like it's end, right?
Yeah.
And I talk about it in terms of this infinity loop, the customer journey. And I was challenged the other day by someone who was like, well, why do you say journey? Journey has an end. To which my response was, but does it? Right? You could have a never-ending journey. Right? Journey doesn't necessarily imply a beginning and an end. It could, but an infinity loop, right, represents this idea of someone going through the phases of their journey with an organization. And here's what I think some people have to realize. I, Jody Spencer, could be engaging with a company at the old way of thinking with top of the funnel because I'm just at the beginning of trying to understand a little bit more about you. But guess what? Jody Spencer's also a customer of yours who has a different product, who is, I'm already an existing customer and you're nurturing me and you're engaging with me in a different way as a customer. But I'm also still back at the other part of this journey because I'm looking at a different product, right? And the way in which traditionally we market it to those individuals, I'd be in two different streams, right? I'd be looked at in two different ways. I'd have two different metrics assigned to my profile. I'm still the same person. And I want you to work with me and engage with me as the customer, not Jody the prospect. And it's a change of mindset in how we communicate with customers and with prospects. So, and don't ever funnel me. I do not want to be squished. I do not want to be grinded. And Marshall, that's never going to leave my head now. Sausage grinder was not something that was in my head when I was thinking funnel.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
That's one for you to keep.
So now this German side discussion that we currently have, or that I currently have with Heiko there. So in how far, well, basically we are saying that the funnel objectifies the customer, makes them an object in
a
disregard of in happy disregard of customers usually being humans or businesses, well, which consist of humans, so basically humans. So the funnel basically makes them being worked on. So how can, what other models or perceptions are out there that are probably acknowledging that a customer has a bit of consciousness, and conscience hopefully too?
So, and I know that you and I differ on this. The next statement that I'm going to come out of my mouth is that the customer should be at the heart of everything, right? So
so far, so yes.
Right?
Agree. Check.
Okay.
Should be.
should be. I think
Mm.
customers are doing, or companies are doing a better job of acknowledging that and changing some of the ways in which they engage. Because let's face it, customers are smarter today. Customers are more demanding. And I'm going to qualify that.
Mm.
Demanding is not, I don't want to use that term in the sense of give me, give me, give me, right? That's not what I mean. What I refer to is customers are smarter. They do not want to be positioned as like, give me this little fluffy content up front. Like, let me fill out a form to get information that is not going to be, get me any further along in my process. Customers are demanding respect in some ways, right? Respect the fact that I'm coming to you and I'm more educated. By the time somebody comes to a website these days, we're not talking back a couple of years ago when they hit the website and they came from a Google ad and it's the first time they're hearing about you and they're looking on your website to understand who you are. Maybe, I'm not saying that that's not the case for everyone, but let's face it, where do most people go today to find information about a product or a company? Anyone?
The web, but anyway, so that they are going where they are funneled, I'd just say. But because where do you end up? You're ending up on Google or on Amazon.
Okay, so I'm gonna
Website.
challenge that and say more and more people are turning to their communities, their trusted sources, right? Because as buyers, we've become smart to say, I know that the company who can throw the most money at the ads is going to appear first. I know the company that has a large budget and could do optimization and right to help rank on those pages. We've become educated. I'm not going to go to a site that has reviews that could possibly have been sponsored. Maybe I'm going to. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to go to review sites. But a lot of people today are turning to their communities and they're asking trusted sources, what have you heard about this product? I can't tell you how many community channels I'm in, and daily that question is asked. It's where I go today. I don't go and Google something. When I'm looking at a new product, the first place I go is my communities.
This is an old lesson, but an important one. Maybe not an old lesson, but certainly back when social media was becoming a big thing. I don't even remember who it was. Was Edelman Trust Monitor or one of those?
Barometer,
Who does a customer trust most? Someone like themselves. There's your community.
But that's ages ago. Meanwhile,
but it's still true.
The most recent trust barometer, the person with the highest trust about a brand is the CEO, which makes me shiver. Yep. Yeah.
But see, I don't get my response from the CEO. I don't ask my CEO.
I can't necessarily name the CEO.
What do you think about XYZ? Right?
Tim Cook probably wouldn't even answer you, but
but here's Marshall, playing off of what you just said. We've made it easier. It is easier today to have a community of like individuals, where before the people who looked like me, sound like me, talk like me, look like me, right, was a little bit harder to find. And I had to dig pretty deep to figure out, okay, is this a trusted source? That has changed dramatically.
Question there.
Oh boy.
So if you are saying community,
when he gets excited like this. What? Because Thomas doesn't get excited.
We should rename this show to In the Hot Seat.
Hey,
it's been done.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to promote the show.
Number two. No, so if you are saying community, I sincerely hope that you do not mean online community. It means people you never have met, but people you know. like you. Well, we haven't met, actually.
I was going to say, well, wait a minute. What is wrong with online communities? Online communities, to me,
What is wrong with them is that the same thing as with review sites applies. So they came up because of people like I giving their honest opinion about product/service. Now, turns out that, well, because the customer is in control, right? Social media.
Yeah.
And it turns out that 95% of those are purchased. So if you don't know the people, how do you know that the community is honest, sincere?
So
and how does that relate to the funnel?
I'll say this on community. I agree with you. I think that there are some communities out there, right? There's so many communities. Finding the ones that are relevant and valid, that's an exercise in and of itself. From a CMO standpoint, there are a ton of communities out there that I could join, right? Getting involved with and making sure that I engage and interact with people in that community, and I meet them. So I might not be able to meet them personally. I will tell you, of the ones that I'm actively involved with, I've had face-to-face virtual talks with people, right? I've built a relationship with individuals in my community who have become a center of trust for me. So community is another thing to me. You can't just throw that word out and go, oh, I'm going to go to a community and treat that like it's a review site, right? That is not what it's about. Communities that are effective are those in which you show up, you learn and you engage with and build relationships with other people in those communities. Those are the communities that become your trusted source or center.
So would this
So now
include
how does
user
that
groups?
relate?
I'm sorry?
Would that include user groups? Or are they not your community until you're also a user? We're talking enterprise software, obviously.
Yeah, so user groups are really interesting because, yes, it's a type of community, but it's a community for customers, right? And treated very differently. Now, there are some companies that do allow prospects to become involved with some of their user groups, which that I find really interesting. That because that changes the dynamic of the group a bit. But yes, a user group is a community of a type. It's a different type of engagement that's happening. You're communicating in a different way. Yeah. I stunned you into silence.
I had to mute because I've got sirens in the background.
Yeah. Now we hear them. So, but how does that relate to funnel or to the death of the funnel? As you know, I still don't dig that the customer's in control. But
I know you. In your words, I don't think the customer is ever going to be in control.
No, because control is where the power is, and power is where the money is.
How much time do we have left? Because that's going to be a really long conversation.
Well, we have all the time of the day.
So in terms of the funnel, right, it could be at multiple different stages as you think about the old funnel, right? I could be going to a community to explore and just figure out who I should be looking at. Like, hey, give me a couple choices. Who should I be going out to? Who should I be going to research? It could be further down in the process where, like, hey, I'm engaged in a proposal with this company. I don't know about you, but I will say every community that I'm involved with, there are questions that are asked. Hey, this was my price that I've been quoted. How about yourself? Right. So community becomes very important as a resource at various stages of that journey with the company. Right. Price transparency becomes a lot more important because you can't hide that. Right. You could not publish it publicly as the company, but I guarantee you the person that you presented that pricing to is talking about that with other people.
Here's a good statement. Someone has a similar opinion than I have. So community is in real life, not on the PC display. I'd subscribe to that statement.
And I will challenge that statement because I will tell you.
That's why I bring it up.
I will tell you, Thomas, perfect example. I would have never met you if it was not for an online community of sorts. Right? We engaged in a, whether you term it a community or not, think about the group where we met. That was an online community. You and I have engaged. You're real. I talk to you pretty frequently. I argue with you frequently, but I talk with you frequently.
And it's always fun.
Right.
And enlightening, by the way.
Some of my strongest relationships today are not people that I worked with in the office pre-COVID. Some of my strongest working relationships are individuals that I've met through my online communities.
Same.
So getting back there, how? I mean, it's also a matter of scales. But what's the way into getting trust there? So, example, I recently looked for a translation service because I was too lazy to translate a bunch of German documents to English for my tax. So, of course, I ended up on some community platform. Platform, the other word. And yeah, it's flat. Yeah, flat.
We're hitting all of his trigger words today.
And well, ended up with approaching a few of them.
Okay.
So well, apparently I ended up in some sort of funnel then. So of course, few of them came back. Well, one of them actually came back and quoted an outrageous price, outrageous, and then asked for prepayment. So what the heck, yeah? So in this type of consulting services, you first deliver a result, yeah, and they basically said, "Eat it." Eat shit is what they said, basically.
So is your question how to establish trust?
This apparently doesn't establish trust in the community and in the people of the community, part one. And part two, it also is an indicator, well, I turned them down, but it's also an indicator that businesses think in terms of funnel, objectify the customer and pressurize them, basically.
So I don't agree with the statement that a lot of companies are still doing the strong arm and the pressuring, right? I mean, again, customers are smart, right? We have options and we now have places to go to get that information. But I want to back up and answer your question on establishing trust. Look,
then I go on with the other one.
Communities, right, are the same as any other source out there. There's bad and there's good. And it's not, I'm not saying go out and just find a community and jump in head first, right? What I'm saying, you have to treat that just as you do, because community takes time. You cannot just join a community and then not be involved in that community. You have to show up, right? It's work, it's effort. You don't go and just say, oh, this company or this area of expertise has a community I'm going to go join, right? Yes, you can join. You could monitor what's happening in community. So what I typically do, I join a community. Right now, I have 17 that I'm a member of. Okay? Of the 17, I have 5 that are highly active for me. And those highly active ones are because when I came in and listened and I was watching the conversation strings and I was getting involved and I was able to add value, right? Because you have to be there. If you want to get something out of a community, you also have to give. If your intention is to join a community and only get, the community is not going to do you any good. Right? You need to show up. If you want to get trust from somebody, you have to provide trust to them as well. Now, you will find in communities, same thing, right? People like to just talk in position. It's amazing how many experts there are on a lot of topics, right? Everybody becomes an expert in a community. You could weed out pretty quickly who really is an expert or who has more experience or who has more knowledge in a certain area, because let's face it, you're going to engage in a community, and next step is probably going out on LinkedIn. You're going to follow them on LinkedIn. You're going to see how they're engaging there. You're going to see what podcasts they're involved with, where are they, talking about certain topics. I mean, there is ways to understand who's a trusted source within communities, but it takes effort and it takes time, and you have to treat it as such.
So how comes then customers in control, right? Still this slight detour. How comes that people don't change their banks? They don't change their utility. They don't change their telco. They don't change their ISP.
How come?
Because to be frank, they mostly suck. And they are not working in your favor. They are working in their favor.
I would argue that one of the biggest reasons people don't do those things is that wonderful force of nature known as inertia. It is, it doesn't mean
AKA laziness.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're not interested. It just means they recognize that the effort to change is not worth it to them for what they would get. Apply enough pressure in one direction and that will change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, a customer has choices, right? You piss me off enough, you make it extremely difficult to work with you. I don't care how sticky you think your solution is. I'm not going to tolerate it. Like our tolerance level as consumers has gone down pretty significantly.
The competitor is similar. So, and in all those industries that I just mentioned, this is exactly the case. So how come?
I think you've had a very negative experience in your life, Thomas.
Several with all of them.
Thomas has been commodified a few too many times.
Really?
So they actually don't, well, they need a funnel and then you're just loot. It's a one-time thing.
Look, all those industries that you just mentioned, I, as a customer, I could change if I want. And let's be honest, yes, there's a stickiness to that. I mean, just intrinsically, right? Your telecom. So now you got to have somebody come out and you got to change out the boxes and you've got to potentially rewire stuff. That is the nature of the solution, right? No matter who you're going with. But if I'm not getting value out of that provider, at some point, I, as the consumer, am going to make a decision. Am I willing to continue to put up with this headache and just sit back and go, it is what it is, so stop complaining about it? Or I have the ability to change. I'm going to change and I'm going to see if there's a different experience with the other provider. Now, some of those that you pointed out, unfortunately, in some regions, people don't have the ability to change, so they are stuck with it.
True.
Yeah, like my utility here, so they have a monopoly. But still, so having choice, fine. Why are take the same in SaaS software? Take the same. So why don't people change? Because the cost of change are tremendously high, and this is not because they manage to make me want to stay. Well, they just they put me in a trap and then the walls are quite high. So that I have trouble climbing out of this hole again.
Again, Thomas, man,
which is then interpreted as loyalty. Which is, also yanking your chain, of course. But this is then also treated as loyalty, right? So, hey, I've got a 120% net retention rate here because people can't leave. Because the price is too high.
Yes, I agree. There are companies still today that make it difficult for companies to leave, 100%. And that will always be the case, right? But I will say, I think we are seeing more and more competitors rise up in certain areas that are making it a more economical option for people to jump ship and try and do away with less configurability, less bells and whistles, right? Options are becoming more today. That is one of the challenges that SaaS companies have, right? SaaS companies that monopolized back in the day, there's more competition today. And there's more competition because, to your point, Thomas, customers are getting frustrated and saying, enough. I'm out there looking for other solutions. I mean, we're talking about CRM, convos. Let's take a look at the CRM space. How many CRM providers have started jumping up in terms of brand awareness that you're hearing about now because customers are jumping ship and going to other providers?
Why is it that the market share of
very-
one of those particular vendors is continuously increasing? And they are very good at creating stickiness by making it hard to leave.
Making it hard to leave, but not making it impossible to leave. Right?
but
You can leave, but there is something to be said about brand, number one, experience, number two. It's not always about the technology, right? So, the behemoth that you're talking about or referencing, right? There's an evolution of product as well. So it's becoming bigger. It's becoming easier to make solutions do what I want them to do. Now, where the difference is going to come in, I think today, before we were always stuck with price, right? The price was the price. We were given the price. We didn't have room for negotiation. I think there's a little bit more pressure now to have that change, because price, you could now go in the SaaS space in pretty much any technology, and you're going to find something for a better price, right? And if price is what you're going to go on and only go on price, remember, you get what you pay for, because there are some stuff out there that are very cheap, right? Sticker price definitely fits in that checkbox. But take a look at what that experience is going to be and what the functionality is going to be. I'm not sitting here advocating for any CRM system, by the way. That's not like we're using that as an example. We're using that as an example. But my point is, if we think that a SaaS solution, there will be a day where stickiness is not important or companies don't strive to become more sticky. Like that's a delusion, right? That's the entire intent. You want somebody to become sticky in your solution. But there's also going to come a day where that customer, no matter how sticky they are in the solution, if their experience is horrible, if the support is horrible, if the price is budgets, companies are slashing budgets more and more. Cost is extremely important, coming under scrutiny. Guess what? It might be out of my control. So as your buyer, where before I said yes, I'm not the one you have to convince. Talk to my CFO, because I may be jumping ship simply because your price is too high. And guess what? There's another option for me to jump to, where before the options were pretty limited. Now there's a pretty good comparative baseline of solutions where you can get a pretty decent solution in all of the spaces at a different price point.
Yeah, cheap and inexpensive don't necessarily mean the same thing.
Correct.
Yeah. We probably should say inexpensive for the good other ones. Yeah.
Correct.
Coming a little back to the funnel. So LinkedIn is a very actively used,
We tried.
the right side of the funnel.
Yeah.
So the companies that are doing that are obviously still following and increasingly following the dead model.
So I'm going to say something that's probably going to be really controversial here.
Good, finally.
I don't know. I've been pretty controversial with you since the start. You and I are like on polar opposite ends of the spectrum for most of this conversation.
Yeah.
That's why we have Marshall.
You're making my job easy. I just watch you guys.
LinkedIn is a platform where people should be engaging personally. The company posts, if you engage with a company and you follow a company, that company is likely not engaging with you from a hard sell perspective as soon as you follow them. Individuals who are associated with the company are using it as a tool to do just that. And that is an education process that the company needs to do and set some parameters around how people engage personally on LinkedIn. Now, here's a sticky point. Because LinkedIn is not a company thing, unless, of course, they're buying their like Sales Navigator or whatever at the company subscription level. But let's just take person to person. Jody Spencer's account is Jody Spencer. It's my views. It's what I want to do. You can't tell me, right, wrong, or indifferent, how I'm going to engage on that platform as an individual. Now, as a company, I can set parameters up, and I can say, here's some guidelines on how we want you to interact. If you're going to use this as a lead engagement tool, as somewhere to try and engage with individuals, this is how we would like you to act on the platform. That is something that I can do as a company. But again, keeping in mind, as an individual, it's no different than the rogue, I don't want to say rogue, but the salesperson who is sending 55 cold emails and calling the person 17 times, and they're just overly aggressive. It's just a different platform that they're doing this on. But it's not the company, it's the person.
Well, the company is the person is a representative of the person, but still the model behind it is the scattergun approach, going wide, probably don't even read the profile properly, and send that out to a target group, a segment that is poorly researched. This is a classical funnel, well, an entrance to a funnel, isn't it? Well, I'm not a marketer, you are smiling.
Throwing the big wide net out, right? Yeah, I mean, you go on and you segment and you slice and dice, and and again, it's an education process. And I think where we went wrong as marketing leaders is we didn't treat it as such and as a personal vehicle, right? We need to establish guidelines. If you're tied to the company, then I can't mandate that you do X, Y, and Z on the platform for you personally, but I sure as heck can give you guidance on what we as a company will tolerate and not tolerate for posts or interactions related to us as a company, right? And that is on us. That's on marketing leadership to educate. And if we're going to use that as a source, let's face it, that kicked up because of all the CAN spam and GDPR, right? We stopped being able to cold email people. So now we can go and try and make a connection on LinkedIn and then send them a message. And again, it's a tool. And if you're using it in the wrong way, you are not establishing trust. Let's go back to that trust value. Spencer's, I either want to be known as a trustworthy person, or if I'm somebody who's going to be out there and the first thing I do is I connect with you and then I send you a pitch of like why you want to engage with me because of all this great stuff that I could offer you. No, right? I want to engage with you because we have information that we can share. I can learn from you. You can learn from me. We will engage in conversation. Can I be of value to you? Can I be a resource to you? Vice versa. And you know what? 6 months down the road, you post something, I might be able to reach out and go, hey, Thomas, I saw this on your post. Not a hard sell, but hey, just want to let you know, here's something that might help you in that process. Now, what is more likely for you, Thomas, to go, wait a second, right? The first time I blast you and you connect with me, and now I've been like, hey, Thomas, I got to tell you everything that we're going to do, right? This is going to be awesome for you. Definitely connect with me. You just unfollowed me. You've just taken me off of your list, right? Pretty quick. You've unsubscribed in the most, in your face way possible. But if I engage and I build that relationship with you, again, back to trust, building that relationship. Now I'm telling you, hey, I saw your problem. Let me tell you about something that might be of a help for you. Let me know if you're interested. You're likely going to reach back out to me.
So now you said things like, or we said things like, the funnel is dead. You mentioned the infinity circle. You mentioned customer journey, well, multiple journeys that one can be on at the same time. What other reasonable models do you see evolving in the market? How businesses deal with their customers or prospects in order to convince them that business is the right solution for the problem that the customer has? Oh, so if this is shaking now, then this is not an earthquake, but my dog on the tripod.
I did get a little worried there. I was like, ooh, what's going on?
Puppy quake.
Yeah, dog fake. Yeah.
All right. So let me break this down. Okay. Let's go back a second. So when we talk about the journey, right, and that infinity loop, and if you can picture an infinity loop, because I could be on multiple different areas of that infinity loop, and ideally, that infinity loop should represent what I, as a company, hope to build with you as my customer. I don't want a one and done, right? I don't want you to come in and now you're a customer and now you want to renew. I want you to renew. I want you to create this relationship with us. I want to become a partner with you. So that infinity loop should visually represent how I want to foster our relationship. It's ongoing. It never ends. It keeps going, right?
Yeah.
How do we as marketing engage with individuals through that infinity loop? It comes down to knowing, again, I believe in putting the customer at the heart of all decisions. I know that you say the customer's not.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
So customers at the heart of those decisions.
The ideal.
Right? Yeah. The customer, once we accept that the customer is smarter than we like to think they are, and we start engaging with them with information that is relevant based on how they are interacting with either us directly, with us through community. Because here's another thing, and I keep going back to community, but it's a big piece of where people are engaging and getting information. If you as a company are not involved or have people involved in some communities to listen, to be educated, to hear what your customers are talking about, it's a missed opportunity, right? So engaging with the customer for where they are in their process. Like I should not be handing somebody A, B, C material just because I believe this is where you are in your journey. Oh, you submitted a form, and forms are another thing we could talk about. I want forms gone, but you submitted a form. Therefore, here's your first piece of information. Now you've received the first piece of information. So now I'm going to send you that second piece of information. I'm going to watch and see what do you do with that information before I determine which track you're going to go down, right? How much more would a customer appreciate it if instead of, first of all, you're cluttering up my inbox. I don't want all this stuff from you. Right. I downloaded a form, or I downloaded because I needed to talk to somebody. I need to be able to talk to somebody to get information about this product. And oh, by the way, by the time I raise my hand and want to talk with you, I've already done 60% of my research. So don't start feeding me information about your, introduction to who you are, because I've raised my hand to tell you this is where I am in my cycle. Think about how many conversations you have. And for someone coming in, and I apologize, I didn't see that statement that went up. I was just I'm on my soapbox.
You can have it.
Okay. So
we are not in Hyde Park here.
So think about when forms come in, right? And sites that are still using a lot of forms, and the person says in comments, I want to know your price for X number of seats, and this is how we're going to use it. What happens? That form comes through, and we put it through a process where someone's going to reach out from a BDR perspective, and the BDR is going to get some more information, which, by the way, let's do away with BANT and all those other criteria too, because but right, you're going to go through, you're going to get all this information. Now, I, as the customer, I'm like, well, wait a minute. I already know what I want. I don't need you to tell me who you think what you think I am, what you think I'm looking for. I know what my challenges are. I've researched your product enough. I've checked out I've checked out your page in terms of features and functions. I'm telling you exactly what I want. But now you're coming back and you're running me through the paces to send me more qualifying questions, to have conversations with a BDR who can't answer, because now I have to take up time of 2 or 3 meetings when I simply could have had the answer from a chat bot if it was set up properly to get the pricing for what I wanted. Right. And now I can make my decision pretty quickly. Like, we make people jump through hoops to get the information that they want, because we still treat customers like they're not educated enough to ask their question.
Which they often are, at least.
Sometimes they're more educated.
In the software business, because they do not always ask for what they need, just for what they want, which is a difference.
Absolutely. Want and need are different. But again, if I'm asking you for something specific, and we can put qualifying responses around that, but if I've already done my due diligence and I'm asking you for pricing on the form, don't put me through 3 meetings, 5 calls, a BDR, and then get over to an account executive 7 days later where I might get an estimate. Guess what? Your competitor responded to me pretty quickly, gave me what I need. I had questions on that price. I went back to them. We negotiated. They helped me identify some areas where I thought this is what I need, and they've corrected me, and I'm going with them.
Yeah, true. This is true. So, what is the model behind it? Talking about sales models again, or marketing sales models. Oh, let's make that a little bigger. So you said you hate those SQL or SQL, the programming language. That was the hint that you
MQL to SQL
that I didn't make you understand. Yeah, the MQL, the SQL, and the non-cooperation of sales and marketing. So this is probably also a part of the emergence and the funnel still being a zombie, because if you're going through a funnel, you have stages, and then you have another buzzword, handoffs.
Oh, I hate that word. Man, you did that on purpose. I knew it was coming.
Oh, Tommy.
Yeah, I mean, so you can hand over responsibility, kind of, hey, here's a bunch of leads, take it.
Or you're going to make my eye twitch. Okay, so let's unwrap this one. First of all, when we break down that silo, sales and marketing, there is this great relationship between the two. They can coexist together. We as companies make it difficult for those departments to work together for exactly what you just said, Thomas. The funnel, the handoff, stop handing off. When we start treating customers as a team effort, a team approach, we're doing an introduction. We're introducing you to another member of the team that is going to help you succeed as a customer. There's no handoff, because handoff implies I'm done with my part. It's now on your shoulders. And as the customer, what does that do? Now I have to go through everything all over again, because let's face it, how clean is that CRM data, right? So now the person who takes my responsibility has to start from square one. Okay, let's talk about what your KPIs are and what is your success and what are your pain points. Guess what? I just went through this with my rep. I don't have to do it again with you. So handoff is gone. You're introducing, it's a team. You're all working together collaboratively from the outset. When sales and marketing start working together from the very, very first interaction, that journey becomes a lot more smooth with way less potholes. The walls start crumbling down. You start having conversation instead of these silos, right? You start working together.
Do marketing and sales need to be separate departments, or could we merge them?
Man, are you kicking a hornet's nest on this one?
Oh, you know
it. Okay. So there is some movement today happening where the two departments are kind of coming under one, right? Sales and marketing are no longer looked at in these little slivers. We're now as one team working together. And one of the reasons I love working where I work in this fractional capacity and working with SMBs and startups in the tech world is because you get to come in and really set the tone out of the gates in the proper way, right? I get it in very large organizations. It's harder to change. It's not impossible, but you have to have stakeholders who are willing to come together and make a change. And here's what I'm going to say. It's a GTM team. It is a go-to-market approach. You're going to have sales. You're going to have marketing. You're going to have customer success. You're going to have product. All of those separate departments should be working together on customers who are coming through that process and going to sign that contract, and they're going to become a customer. Guess what? All of this information, everybody should be having this go-to-market approach because we are all in sales and we are all in marketing. Everybody that I just mentioned, I'm even going to go out on a limb and say, and I know this doesn't go over very well, but finance, legal, everyone is sales and marketing. Because even when someone is interacting with the finance department, they're getting invoices, they're getting their renewals. Think about the opportunity to be able to communicate messaging on the invoice, on the renewal, right? It has to be the same tone. It has to be, I know what the problem is that you're solving. If there's an upsell, cross-sell that the team is working on with you as a customer, here's a great opportunity for all departments that are traditionally siloed to work together to help get that renewal, to help get that upsell, to get that cross-sell. So back to your question, Marshall, I believe in the future we will have go-to-market teams. There will still be for potentially reporting or financial reasons. They'll be defined in certain departmental segments. But as we think about how we work on customer journeys, customer engagements, it's a go-to-market team approach. And the companies who embrace that are going to be the companies that are still in existence, right? 5-10 years from now and doing really, really well and having amazing customer loyalty. Because, when all those wheels are working together, it's a pretty amazing journey for a customer.
Probably, yeah. So you see us in awe. that's why we were so silent.
I know, I wasn't sure. I was like,
Yeah, well, you got us silent.
Giving us a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And we've still got time left.
Yeah. Looking at this, if you're saying that there will be combined GTM teams, go-to-market teams, that then probably not only stretch sales and marketing or marketing and sales, but also go into success and service, probably. How can that, how do you advise the companies you work with to set this up organizationally?
It needs executive sponsorship. It needs to come from the top down. The department heads need to embrace this. It's a big change, right? Because let's face it, a lot of people like having that power, right? Like, I'm the one in control. There needs to be, and this is a discussion that I get into a lot, when you do a GTM approach, it's like, well, who owns GTM? Right? That's always the number one question. Who is the person who owns GTM? And I think that's going to depend on the size of the company and the structure that you have, the different roles and responsibilities that you have. There does need to be a point person that owns, because you're shepherding and you're facilitating a lot of moving pieces across different teams. So it can't be willy-nilly, right? So you do need to have somebody who steps up from a GTM approach. And I always like to argue and say, well, marketing should be the person who owns GTM, right? And be at that
One could
sphere.
say you are biased.
Maybe just a little. But there's definitely some cases where it's sales that perhaps takes the onus on it, or the customer success person owns that responsibility. So it really depends on the organization and how the organization is structured. I'm going to throw one other area in here that we didn't talk about, and we'd need another whole episode on this. But when we're talking about GTM, if you're an organization that works with partners, that is also part of this approach, because a partner may be in the mix, and that is part of your GTM team. So keep that in mind. So Marshall and Thomas, and I apologize, Thomas, you're the one who asked me the question. When I go into companies, the first thing is discussing this idea, right? This GTM approach as opposed to this siloed approach, getting buy-in at that level, right? Showing the benefit of what this means moving forward, what this means for the customer, what this means for you as an organization. Once the leadership buys in, now it becomes, okay, this is what we're going to do as an organization. As you push that down, and now the managers within each of the departments, you need to have buy-in at that level, right? You can't force someone to do something, because forced participation pretty much amounts to obstinance the entire way, right? Let's face it. So you need to make it so that there is this acceptance and this getting on board with this new approach, because it is a change. And let's be real, it's going to be difficult for the first year. It's great when you're coming into a net new company and there's no processes in place and you're able to start out of the gates. It's another thing when you're coming into a company and they have a very systematic approach that's working for them, or they think is working for them at a department level. And now you're coming in and ripping and replacing. It goes back to that stickiness factor, Thomas. Just like with technologies, companies don't want to change process. Process change, change management is often the most difficult thing for a company to do. And that's what this is. It's a complete process change.
It's also the first thing that gets cut off in implementation projects. The second one then is the quality procedure.
And once you're tracking to once you understand, and we haven't even talked about this side of it. And how many minutes? 3 minutes. Okay, not even going to get there. But we haven't even talked about really from the revenue side, right? And understanding marketing is comped in one way, sales is comped in another, customer success is comped in another, as opposed to comped on the value of the customer, right? Because that changes how we handle customers when they are engaging with us during their journey. Because if I've already been comped, I don't really care about where the challenge is right now, maybe, right? Or I'm too busy, or that's not my problem because I've handed it off. It's now somebody else's problem. So this comes back to a bigger discussion on how we compensate or how we reward our employees for the success of a customer.
Now, very conscious of our time. So whatever I ask now may elicit a longer response.
You're asking me this with a minute to go. I can't wait. Go ahead.
No,
I hope you didn't have any plans.
We are going straight into the famous last words. Okay, so having said all this, with the zombie still being around, what is, how will a sales cycle in tech, let's limit it to tech, look in 3 to 5 years? What will change? What will accelerate, or what will slow down?
I think there's going to so in 3 to 5 years, I think there's going to be a couple things that accelerate. I think the customer is going to self-select a lot earlier in the process. I think that the customer is, right now we're saying they're 60% of the way through by the time they raise their hand. They're going to be further along in that process because they have, companies need to make it easier for a customer, prospect, consumer, however you want to call them, to get the information that they need to make decisions. So I think we're going to see more self-serve content and mechanisms for customers. I think the sales cycle in terms of speed is going to be interesting because it's elongating right now, right? Because more people are involved in the process. I think we're going to see where it's easier for the stakeholder to make a decision on what they want, and where the sticky point is going to be is the financial side, right? So now the CFO, the finance team is getting involved way earlier in that process. So one of the big changes that I believe we're going to see is companies having to speak to that financial element earlier in the process. We didn't have to justify that until later, right? That was always a tail end of the discussion. That now has to be up front and center.
Amazing. So we should have stopped the clock half an hour ago. Thank you, Jody, so much. This was beyond amazing. So this is
we've got stuff left to talk about.
Epic. That was.
I guess I'll be back again.
So, I guess so.
You are.
Thank you both. It was
surely invited.
Again.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Jody. Your time, your insight, all of that stuff. This has been a wonder and a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks also to our audience, Heiko, for your comments, and for everyone else for listening in. Next week, we're going to be diving into how to go for a successful CX project and discuss the CRM manifesto with our dear friend, Georg Bloom. I hope you'll be able to join us for that. So until such time, on behalf of all of us, thanks again, and keep looking forward.
See you soon.
And throw out some acronyms in the